It's hard to know where to begin the story of the Hess's work with fire protection at Cobb. My sister Mary and I and our brother John are co-owners of the house here at Cobb. And our grandmother, Mary Lee Hess, bought 40 acres in 1939 for $15 an acre. And since then, we've purchased 3 additional parcels, 2 of 10 acres and 1 of 20 acres. So we have a total of about 80 acres. And our experience of brush and land management has had lots of hiccups over the years. I would say for the first 60 years, we really didn't know what we were doing except in theory. And by the time of the Valley Fire, we had no defensible space. And of course, the house and 13 structures burned. So for years, we were learning from my grandmother, who had learned from her Uncle John Lee, who owned Glenbrook at the time. And then my father learned from her, and my father taught my brothers and Mary and me, my brothers Fred and John, and Mary and me, and there were 4 of us, and now we are teaching our 2. Vivian, my wife here, and I have 2. Michael, who's 25 and has just been hired by CAL FIRE, and Robert, who's 21 and is finishing his career at San Diego State. So basically it's been a family operation for about 80 years, but I would say it's really only been effective for the last 3 or 4 years since the Valley Fire. And there are a number of reasons for that. My grandmother, Mary Lee, built a wooden house with a wood shake roof in the middle of a brush patch. And in retrospect, that was in no way defensible at all. And it's not surprising that in 1962 it burned to the ground in the Widow Creek fire. My father, who was hard pressed to get 4 kids back into a house by Christmas time, built a very nice house, but it was a cedar sided house with an asphalt shingle roof. And by the time of the Valley Fire in 2015, it was 53 years old. The cedar siding was cracked and the paint had come off in certain places, although we tried to keep it painted. The roof had degraded and it was quite flammable. Also, we still didn't have much of a defensible space. So after the Valley Fire, which was a huge traumatic shock to all of us, my son Michael and I were talking to Jim Wright, a retired CAL FIRE division chief, who's our neighbor on Bottle Rock Road. And the thing he told us was, start at the house and work outwards. And so that's essentially what we've been doing for the last 4 years, is starting with a house and moving outward with a defensible space to clear as much brush as possible, to limb the trees up as we've been doing here on Roberta's Place, limb them up out of what's called ladder fuel. You don't want to have a fuel ladder of leaves and grass leading to brush, leading to low-hanging limbs, and then creating fire bombs out of fir trees and pine trees. The other aspect, besides the 200-foot radius clearance around the house, is to clear the exit road. And we have 2 roads actually, both coming from Bottle Rock, about a half mile different from each other. Ideally, I'd like to have a 25-foot clearance on both sides of the road, very park-like, where all brush is gone and trees are limbed up. And the practical order of things, accomplishing a 25-foot clearance along a half-mile road is a huge task, particularly when we've got, like Carol does, we've got infestations of Scotch broom that metastasize faster than we can get rid of them almost. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things. First is our personal approach, and we use a number of tools. We use chainsaws, fire, herbicides, clippers, hand tools, and fire is a crucial aspect of it. This year I've done 350 burns on our property, mainly piles, but also some broadcast burns. And I did that basically because I had the time and because the conditions were right. Down in our forest, which is a fairly small part of our property, but it's forest like what we see around here, Douglas firs, ponderosa pines, and oaks. We're trying to limb everything up. We're trying to burn the surface fuel through broadcast burning, where you light fires within a given perimeter of, say, 30 by 50 feet, and you burn everything inside that, you let fire run and you reduce the fuel down to ash. We don't do this every year, of course, because that would denude the land of nutrients. I'd like to do it every 5 years. So on a rotational basis, each segment of the property, or say if we were doing your property here, Roberta, we wouldn't broadcast burn the whole thing in one season. But like every 5 years, each part of it would be done. So the leaves and pine needles are reduced to ash, which then you can either rake in or let the rain bring back into the soil.